On today's episode, what if this thing does not deliver the power you need? For many of you, this sort of Parkside Performance SDS rotary hammer drill has long been the go-to SDS hammer drill. However, the power of this has not been enough for you. So Lidl has decided to help you out by launching this. Can you see what it is yet? Of course, it's the new and much larger SDS rotary hammer drill from Parkside. And right from the start, it looks quite promising. They say it has 5.8 joules of impact energy, whereas its smaller brother is said to have 3 joules. And both of them use the same type of SDS Plus bits. This thing is important to mention right from the start. Parkside recommend using at least an 8 amp hour battery with this, whereas with the smaller SDS drill, you can get away with using a 4 amp hour battery. Although, I will still go for an 8. This is brand new. However, as I've had some quality issues with Parkside in the past, check out this video if you want to see what I mean by that. I think it would be best to unbox it in front of the camera. And hopefully this channel will get some of them unboxing viewing figures. If you have enjoyed the content so far, please consider liking the video, subscribing and leaving a comment down below. First impressions are that this thing looks absolutely massive. And it weighs a ton as well. To give it its full name, it's the Parkside Performance PKHAP 2058 A1 or 205 A1. Unlike with some of the other Parkside SDS drills, you don't get drill bits in the box, just some grease and a wrench. I have to say, it is rather nice of them to provide this wrench, because it means that you can actually do some maintenance on the tool. You can occasionally check on how your hammer mechanism is doing and maybe even add some grease from time to time. Looks like it's getting impatient, so let's talk about its modes. You get drilling without hammering, the hammer drilling mode, you get a chisel rotation bit, and finally you have a hammer only mode, which is for demolition, I guess. But that's not all. Let me show you the other differences compared to its smaller brothers. These smaller versions only have 2 speeds, whereas this monster has 6 speed settings. On the smaller versions, you select the rotation from this switch here, forward or reverse, whereas on this one, you don't get such a switch. You select the rotation direction from this small membrane button down here, so that's forward and that's reverse. Another option the bigger tool has that the smaller ones don't is the option to lock the trigger in the on position. However, that only works when using it in hammer mode alone. This function will not work for hammer drilling or just drilling modes. However, if you try it, it will just stop working as soon as you engage it. As I said, this just feels enormous. Maybe because I'm used to the smaller one, but still. Putting them side by side really shows you the size difference. And the bare tool weight really backs that up. So I'm going to call it now. I think the smaller one is sufficient for DIY work around the house. However, if you want to take things to the next level, it looks like Parkside has your back. I highly doubt you would purchase one of these in order to drill 5mm holes. So let's skip these small drill bits and go right to these 12mm and 14mm SDS drill bits by Parkside Performance. As I said at the start, this uses SDS Plus drill bits, which is convenient in this case because I can use the same drill bits for both tools. A couple more things to mention before we get into testing. The smaller rotary hammer drill is the C4 version. It will be on speed 2 and it is using a fully charged 8 amp hour battery. And the bigger one will be making use of its top gear, so speed 6 in this case, and it will also be using a fully charged 8 amp hour battery. Finally, both on hammer drilling mode. For the test, I have acquired a concrete piece and a piece of stone. Starting off with the concrete piece, first up the 12mm drill bit. You may have seen that both the drill bits stopped turning at one point. This is because both tools spent some time in the cold and the Parkside electronics just needed to get up to a working temperature. These really are household tools. They just don't enjoy the outdoors too much. Well, not the cold anyway. However, as they heated up, no more such issues took place. You just can't argue with the sheer power the bigger tool has. It's already finished, and the other one still has some way to go. That was the 12mm drill bit, and now onto the 14mm drill bit. My observation here is that I had to take much more care with the smaller tool. Having less power means that the drill bit can get stuck a lot more easily. Combine that with the longer time it needs to complete the task, and in this case, it is the more tiring experience. Although the positioning helps a lot for that to be the case, as drilling straight down, you don't feel the weight as much. Had I had to drill in a horizontal or overhead position, I would have preferred, or I would have even begged, to use the lighter tool. This is not the most useful test in the world, but it might be interesting to someone. So let's see how they perform in the stone piece. This will be with only the 12mm drill bit because we haven't got all day. Parkside say, as I pointed out, that this tool should be used with at least an 8Ah battery, but I know someone will want to try it with a 4Ah battery. So let me save you the misery and do it for you. This is the 12mm drill bit. And the headline is, this thing with a 4Ah battery feels severely underpowered. I would prefer the smaller tool with an 8Ah battery to this with a 4Ah. I tried it on all speeds with a 4Ah, and in all speeds it was way too eager to just give up and go home. So if you're thinking of purchasing this tool, you should definitely have an 8Ah battery to go with it. Finally, we get to the chiseling action, and as you would expect, again, there is a substantial difference. I mean, not that these tools are meant for this sort of work anyway, there is a demolition hammer if you want something serious. However, I do understand that sometimes desperate situations call for desperate measures. So here you can see the small tool trying its hardest, but it's just not meant for this sort of demolition work. The bigger one, on the other hand, I found surprising yet again. Considering this is not its main purpose in life, you would be surprised how easily it went through the concrete. The difference between both of these here is even larger than it was in the drilling section. In terms of how power hungry these tools are, I performed exactly the same tasks with fully charged 8Ah batteries on both of them, and in the end they both lost a bar. I have to say this thing surprised me, and that's in a very good way, because I was not expecting all of that power. This has 6 joules of impact energy, whereas this has 3, and you can really feel the difference. I did only test them with a 12mm and 14mm drill bit, and the claim from Parkside is that the bigger one can go up to 30mm in concrete. I am sort of inclined to agree with that statement. It's just very hard to argue with the sheer power that this, let's be honest, hobby tool can deliver. But on the other hand, you really don't need all that power for at least 95% of regular DIY work. In that case, you have to decide if the extra weight is worth the performance increase. Because let's be honest, the smaller tool also managed to complete all the tasks that were thrown at it. It was just slower at completing them. But honestly, I think for nearly all of the hobby users, the smaller SDS drill will be just good enough. It can get a lot done in terms of DIY, and even though I have both of these now, I'm certain the smaller one will get used at least 95% of the time. In terms of negative comments, this is the biggest downside with this tool for me. With this amount of power naturally come substantial vibrations, which means that it's a good idea to have some sort of thicker gloves. And once you wear those gloves, you understand why the drilling direction switch has become a pretty much standard entity. That is because it simply works. Moving it down here and making it a membrane button means that it makes life for me a bit harder when I want to change the drilling direction. Even with bare fingers, if they're not cocktail sticks, you'll find the button a bit hard to press. I'm not so bothered about the speed selector because you sort of select the speed and leave it at that. But the direction switch, yeah, that's not a very smart idea. At least Parkside have the cheap factor going for them, so I can't complain too much. If you have enjoyed the content, liking the video, subscribing to the channel and leaving a comment down below really helps the channel out a lot.